Another day, another story. Purim is a joyful Jewish holiday commemorating the salvation of the Jewish people from a near massacre in ancient Persia, as recounted in the Book of Esther. Unlike the solemn fasting during Yom Kippur, Purim is a time of merriment, marked by feasting, drinking wine, dressing up in costumes, and giving gifts to friends, family and people in need. Purim is a Jewish holiday that commemorates the saving of the Jewish people from Haman, who was planning to kill all the Jews in the ancient Persian Empire. Welcome to Tabo Eminent Channel. The story of Purim is recounted in the Book of Esther in the Hebrew Bible, also known as the Old Testament. The holiday is celebrated annually on the 14th day of the Hebrew month of Adar, usually in February or March on the Gregorian calendar. During Purim, Jews typically read the Book of Esther, give to charity, exchange gifts of food with friends and neighbors, known as Mishloach Manot, and enjoy a festive meal. One of the most distinctive customs of Purim is the wearing of costumes and masks, which is believed to symbolize the hidden nature of God's involvement in the events of the Purim story. Another significant Purim custom is the consumption of triangular-shaped pastries called hamantaschen, which are filled with various sweet fillings like fruit preserves, chocolate, or poppy seeds. The name, hamantaschen, is derived from the name of Haman, the villain in the Purim story. Overall, Purim is a joyous holiday filled with celebration, gratitude, and remembrance of the Jewish people's survival and triumph over adversity. Purim celebrates Queen Esther each year on the 14th day of the Adar in the Hebrew calendar, typically in March, and is held from sundown to sundown the following day. History and origins. Purim, which translates to lots in Hebrew and is sometimes called the Feast of Lots, is founded on the events told in the biblical Book of Esther, which dates back to the 5th century BC. The narrative centers on Esther, an orphaned Jewish young woman raised by her cousin Mordecai, who ascends to the throne of Persia when she marries King Ahasuerus. Following Mordecai's counsel, Esther conceals her Jewish identity from the king. However, when Haman, the king's advisor, conspires to destroy all of Persia's Jews, partly due to his hatred of Mordecai, Mordecai urges Esther to reveal her identity. Bravely, she chooses her people's survival over her own safety, confronting Haman's scheme and imploring the Jews to fast with her for 3 days before she approaches the king. Esther's plea, "If I perish, I perish," Esther chapter 4 verse 16, becomes a defining moment of courage. The king ultimately sides with his wife, orders Haman's execution, and saves the Jewish people. It's the story of human ingenuity, human courage, and human bravery, Rabbi Elaine Glickman of the Women's Rabbinic Network tells USA Today. Notably, the Book of Esther is the only book in the Bible that does not directly mention God by name. There was not splitting of the sea or water turning into blood, Rabbi Yehuda Lipskyer, executive director of Chabad, tells NY1. This was a natural event with political maneuvering. Customs and traditions. The notion that everything is upside down is very much a part of the tradition. Masquerading is something that's been associated with Purim for hundreds of years, Judaic studies professor Jonathan Krasner tells Time. The story of Purim, as recounted in the Book of Esther, takes place in the ancient Persian Empire during the reign of King Ahasuerus, Xerxes I, who ruled from 486 to 465 BCE. The narrative revolves around a Jewish girl named Esther, who becomes Queen of Persia after catching the eye of King Ahasuerus during a beauty contest. Esther, whose Jewish identity is initially concealed, finds herself in a position to influence the king's decisions. Meanwhile, Haman, the king's advisor, becomes enraged when Esther's cousin Mordecai refuses to bow down to him. Seeking revenge, Haman convinces King Ahasuerus to issue a decree to annihilate all the Jews in the empire on a specific date, chosen by casting lots, Purim in Hebrew, from which the holiday's name is derived. Upon learning of this decree, Mordecai urges Esther to intervene with the king on behalf of her people. Esther, despite the danger, approaches the king and reveals her Jewish heritage, pleading for him to spare her people. King Ahasuerus, unaware of Haman's deceit, agrees to revoke the decree but is unable to do so due to the Persian law that decrees that royal edicts cannot be revoked. Instead, the king issues a new decree allowing the Jews to defend themselves against their enemies. When the designated day arrives, the Jews successfully defend themselves against those who seek to harm them, and Haman himself is hanged on the gallows that he had prepared for Mordecai. In commemoration of their deliverance, the Jews established the holiday of Purim, which celebrates their salvation and survival. The Book of Esther instructs Jews to observe Purim annually by reading the story, giving to charity, sending gifts of food to friends and neighbors, and engaging in festive meals and rejoicing. The story of Purim is rich with themes of courage, faith, divine providence, and the triumph of good over evil. It continues to be celebrated by Jews around the world as a reminder of the importance of standing up against oppression and injustice. Mordecai, Esther's cousin, plays a significant role throughout the narrative. He is depicted as a righteous and loyal Jew who refuses to bow to Haman, an act of defiance that sets off the chain of events leading to the decree to annihilate the Jews. Mordecai's refusal to bow is not merely an act of pride but reflects his unwavering commitment to his faith and refusal to bow to anyone other than God. Esther's bravery is another central aspect of the story. Despite the risks involved, she agrees to approach King Ahasuerus, risking her own life to plead for the salvation of her people. Esther's courage in revealing her identity as a Jew and appealing to the king's sense of justice highlights the theme of individual responsibility and the power of moral action. The character of Haman is portrayed as the antagonist of the story, driven by pride, ambition, and a deep-seated hatred for the Jews. His plan to exterminate the Jewish people is not only a manifestation of his personal vendetta against Mordecai but also reflects broader themes of anti-Semitism and persecution that have persisted throughout history. The role of divine providence is also central to the Purim story. Although the name of God is not explicitly mentioned in the Book of Esther, many Jews interpret the events of the narrative as evidence of God's hidden hand guiding and protecting his people. The unlikely turn of events, including Esther's rise to power, the timing of Mordecai's revelation of the assassination plot, and the eventual downfall of Haman, are seen as examples of divine intervention. Food traditions. Purim traditions often include the exchange of baskets, known as Mishloach Manot, filled with festive foods and wine or grape juice. One of the most popular treats is hamantaschen, an iconic triangular-shaped pastry filled with poppy seeds, chocolate, dates or jam, that symbolizes the three-sided hat said to be worn by Haman. Other customary dishes include kreplach, savory meat-filled dumplings served in soup, challah, lintzes and more. Celebrants often serve them at the Purim Suda, a feast with friends and family that typically begins in the afternoon, with festivities often lasting well into the night.